Okay, hi everyone, it's SmithyQ, SmithyQ.com, and we're here with the follow-up to the last video where I talked about the queen takes d5 Scandinavian, the general ideas and plans, and today we're going to look at, I suppose it's a sister opening, but it's quite distinct in almost every way, the knight f6 Scandinavian. Whereas the queen takes d5 are generally used by people who want simple, thematic, solid, positional games. The knight f6 lines are generally the exact opposite. The black players, they want to play active, aggressive, complicated, messy chess. And some of the variations can get quite almost silly. Some of the lines in the Portuguese variation. That said, I need to get my bias out of the way. I'm not a really big fan of this position for black. It seems as if white is able to get a pretty simple position if he so wants without much risk. And as black, you're kind of relying on white to go a little bit crazy to justify your play, because otherwise you just seem to get to a passive position. But that's my take. If you are a knight f6 player, or you're at all interested in these positions, you want to spice it up, the Bible is SmithyQ Scandinavian. It's by far the main resource for these types of variations. I haven't read it, but the reviews are absolutely excellent, so you can check that out. This is simply my take on the opening. And so first off, so the idea is black, he wants to take the pawn with his knight rather than the queen, so he doesn't lose time moving his queen, which is great. The downside is it does mean he's moving his knight twice in the opening, so he's going to be losing time regardless, no matter what happens. Now, what black is really hoping for is that white gets sensationally greedy. And again, I would never, I don't know if I've ever recommended trying to hang on to a pawn. It's position, position, position. Because something like this, where you're playing c4 to defend the pawn, and then we got c6, something like this, which I believe is the most sound black gambit. You're completely justified. Look at this hole that you've got complete control of. You can play e5, bishop c5, and white has an incredibly hard time doing anything in this type of position. I believe black even scores better because good white players don't do this. Basically, it's complete unadulterated greed. Also fun is e6, the Icelandic gambit. If you've never seen this before, you should check out some games, especially some of the quick black wins. They're some of the tactics can get quite messy, and white can get into a really terrible position really, really quickly. For instance, after something like knight f3, queen e7 is actually one of the main moves. We're threatening the discover check, and a normal move like bishop e2 actually doesn't work because, well, we just won the pawn back. The bishop is pinned. White's got a terrible structure. We're going to play knight c6, castle queenside, and black is just doing amazing. And again, this is the type of game that black wants, and it happened because white was greedy. And it's really easy for white to make mistakes in this game, in these positions. And this is what really makes people fall in love with this opening, is because it's so easy for black to get an initiative. But again, it does rely on white, again, being greedy, on taking pawns. White doesn't have to be greedy, and I'll be perfectly honest here, is that my main move against the knight f6 is playing c4, but then after c6, I just play d4, and then take, say, knight c3, and now we've entered into the Pana-Botvinnik line of the Caro-Kann. You can see the Caro-Kann video for more about this. But anyway, basically, I've taken black out of the knight f6 Scandinavian, and now it's into a Caro-Kann structure. And this probably isn't something black wants if he's playing the knight f6 Scandinavian. And the same thing is actually true for e6, the Icelandic gambit, because after d4 take knight c3, we're actually in an exchange French. So we can imagine, I'll just back up, this is e6, d4, d4, d5, take with c4. We can imagine something like knight f6, knight c3. It's the exact same position. And this is my favorite way of playing the French, and so it's perfect. I can just after e4, d5, knight f6, I can play c4, and one way or the other, I'm getting a position that I like, but also it's denying black from getting his the normal positions that he wants, because again, I'm not being greedy, I'm not trying to hang on to a pawn, I'm simply transforming the position. That said, this isn't the only way to play, is that white can also play just simply with d4. And in many ways, I find these positions even also really nice for white, just in perfectly honesty. Now again, the absolute main move for black is this bishop to g4. This is what constitutes the Portuguese variation. And what black is hoping for is something along the lines of f3, bishop moves back, and then something like this, c4, and then g4. Now, I've seen some posts on various forums from, masters, international masters, saying that this particular setup, or setups like this, refute this whole opening. Now, is that true? Is that not true? I don't know. But what I do know is this is exactly what black wants. Is that white has moved nothing but pawns. He's got weaknesses forever. No matter what's going to happen, is that the white king is not going to be happy. There's going to be open lines. Black is going to have some type of play. Maybe it's not completely sound, at the super master level, but this is just ridiculous. And again, it's what black wants. If white does not necessarily need to play like this. For instance, simply playing knight f3 or bishop e2 right here is going to basically suck the fun out for black. For instance, after I believe something like knight f3, what's the main line? Something like knight takes d5, bishop e2, bishop e6, castle, bishop e7, say. What's going to happen is at any point, white can play h3 and likely, if not force the exchange, where he gets the two bishops. The bishop is over here. We can then follow up some of these c4 ideas with knight c3. The knight's going to be kicked away. In fact, let me just move the knight somewhere. Peter wants to go there. Why not? Knight c3. And look at this. White has a space advantage. White is fully developed. White has absolutely no weaknesses. And he's got he can do almost anything he wants. He can plop the knight into e5. He can go bishop f4. He can get his rooks to the files and start pushing in the center. He can just expand on the queen side. White can do anything. And I don't see in this type of position what black has. Black certainly doesn't have any super active play. Certainly not anything that I would want to play regularly as the black player. I believe after something like knight f3, the best try for black is actually something along the lines of queen takes d5, which is transposing into a line of the queen d5 Scandinavian that we looked at last time. But I believe the idea is after knight c3, the queen can actually come over here, if I recall correctly. Or at the very least, just come back to a5, and again, it's the queen a5. I don't really know the theory. I have had no reason to play this as black. So I've never went into it. And so that's pretty much the extent of the knight f6 Scandinavian as far as my experience with it. Again, I've never played it very much because I simply transpose into the other variations, the exchange Caro or the exchange French, which are both openings I play, and why not? It's also not giving black what he wants. And anytime there's an opening in which you're kind of relying on your opponent to make certain moves or make certain ideas to justify your play, then that's inherently something, it's risky. And I would much prefer not playing such openings. Now, again, it can be a lot of fun if white obliges. I know smeared on Scandinavian, it probably goes into a heck of a lot more detail on how to liven up some of these positions, and I'm sure there's gambit or other just crazy ideas. but in my experience, I've never come across them, and it's certainly not my my main recommendation as black. And again, there's so many simple ways of just playing, whether it's the c4 or it's a simple development, knight f3, bishop b2, castling, and then playing c4 later, and you've got everything you could possibly want in an opening. So don't complain. Again, it's not like the openings are feuded, it doesn't lose, but this is not necessarily what you want to play regularly as black. Okay, that's it. Short, simple, to the point. The Knight F6 Scandinavian, at least according to Smithy. So bottom line, as black, I wouldn't really recommend it. And as white, just don't get super greedy. Don't play some of the, like, there's other lines, right? Even here, I mean, there are some people that they'll play like this bishop b5 line, trying to coerce c6. Or after something like knight d7, bishop c4, and white is going to get greedy and try and hang on. Just don't hang on to pawns. You don't. Just develop normally, and you'll get a positional advantage regardless. That is the. That's really what this whole video boils down to. Don't get greedy, develop normally, and then you'll be fine. And don't play it as black. But that's just my advice. Anyway, that's it. SmithyQ, SmithyQ.com. I'll have more coming up. Again, I'm going to try and get every major opening before the end of the summer, and then I'm off to university, and I probably won't have time to do this anymore. But that's that. Okay, so comment, like, subscribe, all that's great if you want, and thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.